Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to crack open the Public Health Detective's Handbook. We're going to find out how scientists solve some of the biggest medical mysteries out there.
You ever wonder how we actually know that something is bad for you, like, say, smoking, or how we know a new vaccine is totally safe and effective? I mean, how does some scientist's hunch turn into a huge global health headline?
Well, the answer is this amazing field that's basically part science, part detective work. It's called epidemiology. And really, all it is the study of the who, the when, and the where of health and disease in big groups of people. You can think of it as like the foundation of all public health.
And that's exactly why people call epidemiologists public health detectives. I mean, their whole mission is to track down what causes diseases, figure out who's most at risk, and in the end, protect the health of, well, all of us.
So every good detective needs a toolkit, right? And for these health detectives, the very first job is always the same. You gotta count the clues. Okay, so these detectives start by asking three really basic but super important questions. First up, what's the chance someone gets sick over a certain amount of time? That's what we call risk. Then they ask, okay, how fast is this disease spreading? That's the rate. And finally, how many people have this thing right this second? And that's prevalence. Each one of these gives us a totally different piece of the puzzle. All right, so once you've counted up all your clues, what's next? You gotta find a suspect. Now, in epidemiology, we don't call it a suspect, we call it an exposure. And this could be anything, a habit, a medication, even something in your environment. And the whole goal is to see if that exposure is connected to the outcome, the disease we're looking at. So let's walk through a classic case to see exactly how this works. We're going to look at the connection between smoking and heart attacks.
Okay, check out this evidence log. We've got two groups of people here, 100 smokers and 200 non-smokers. Now look at this. Out of the smokers, 30 of them had a heart attack. But in the non-smoker group, which is twice as big, remember, only 20 did. So right away, you're probably thinking, looks like there's a connection, right? But the real question is, how strong is it?
But when you actually do the math, the picture gets crystal clear. For smokers, the risk is 30 out of 100. That's 30%. Simple enough. For non-smokers, it's 20 out of 200, which is just 10%. So what does that mean? It means smokers were 3 times more likely to have a heart attack. That is a huge difference. And that powerful number, that 3x, is what we call the relative risk. And let me tell you, that tells us we found a very strong suspect.
Okay, so finding a suspect is a huge step. But it's one thing to have a suspect, it's another thing entirely to prove your case, right? So every good detective needs a solid investigation plan. In our world, these are called study designs, and they're all about how you gather the evidence.
So the two main ways detectives do this are with cohort studies and case control studies. Let's break them down. A cohort study is like looking forward in time. You start with people who are exposed and people who aren't, and you literally follow them for years to see who gets sick. It's all about asking what's going to happen. But a case control study does the complete opposite. It looks backward. You start with people who are already sick, those are your cases, and a healthy group, your controls, and you dig into their pasts to see what they were exposed to. It asks what already happened. So when do you use which one? Well, they each have their pros and cons. Cohort studies are fantastic if you're looking at a really rare exposure, but man, they are expensive and they can take forever. Case control studies, on the other hand, are way faster, and they're great for rare diseases. But their big weakness? Something called recall bias. I mean, can you perfectly remember what you ate for lunch every day last year? Probably not, and that can mess with the data. And then there's a third type of investigation, the cross-sectional study. The best way to think about this one is like taking a single snapshot in time, a photograph. You ask about the exposure, hey, do you smoke? And the outcome, and hey, do you have a cold right now? At the exact same time. It's super fast, gives you a great snapshot. But here's the catch. You have no idea which came first. Did the smoking cause the cold? Or did having a cold make them want to smoke? You just can't tell.
All right, now we get to maybe the most important part of any investigation. This is the final test. You have to make absolutely sure you haven't been fooled by a false lead. Because in epidemiology, these false leads are everywhere, and they are a huge danger. This sneaky problem has a name. It's called confounding. And here's what it is. It's when the two groups you're comparing, say, your smokers and non-smokers, aren't actually comparable. There's some other hidden factor at play that's different between them.
This hidden factor, the confounder, gets tangled up in the results and can point you to a totally wrong conclusion. Let me show you what I mean with another case file. So at first glance, the raw data here shows a really strong connection. The first measurement, called an odds ratio, is 3.45. That means the exposed group seems 3.5 times more likely to get sick. I mean, that looks like an open and shut case, right? But is it really the whole story?
And here is the twist. The false lead was age. It turns out the exposed group was just older on average. So when the detectives went back and separated the data by age, comparing young people to young people and older people to older people, the real connection was way weaker. The odds ratio dropped all the way down to 2.0. That first number was totally misleading because age itself was a risk factor and it was hiding in the data.
You can see how this is a detective's worst nightmare, right? So the big question becomes, how do you set up your investigation to avoid these false leads from the very start? Well, the answer is what everyone in the field calls the gold standard of evidence. It's the randomized controlled trial, or RCT for short. This is, without a doubt, the most powerful and rigorous investigation plan you can possibly have. The magic is all in that first word, randomization. You take a group of people and randomly assign them to get either the treatment or a placebo. That one simple act is incredibly powerful. Why? Because it creates two groups that are, for all intents and purposes, identical. It balances out all the confounders we know about, like age, and here's the amazing part, it even balances out the ones we don't know about. So you can be sure that the only real difference between the two groups is the one thing you're testing. So let's quickly recap our detective handbook, shall we? First, epidemiology is the science of public health detectives. Check. We count the clues using measures of occurrence like risk, rate, and prevalence. Then we find our suspects with measures of association like relative risk. Our investigation plans are our study designs, like cohort and case control. And finally, to make sure we don't get tricked by false leads like confounding, we use the gold standard, the randomized controlled trial.
And that right there is how public health detectives crack their cases. So the next time you see some big headline about a new health risk or a miracle cure, you'll actually have the tools from this handbook to look a little deeper. You'll know the right questions to ask. So now that you've got the handbook, what health mystery are you going to investigate next?